Just sussing out our live stream scenario. Cool, let me share my screen. Make sure we're all in the right place. Can you see my screen?
Here we go. We can see that.
Fantastic.
All right. How long should we do? One more minute, then we'll get into it, eh?
Cool.
All right. Should we do that? That'll be enough.
Cool. All right, I think you've already welcomed everybody. This is a practical workshop around importing jobs into your Xero Practice Manager. I'm Ruben, if you're not familiar with myself, and my business partner here, Will. Um, we've got a bit of an agenda, but we run this actually, I think, the second or third time we've run this webinar, this workshop for New Zealand. And maybe the last, I don't know. We'll hear from Will at the end. But this is about setting up jobs in Xero Practice Manager. Cool. Let's get through. Let's bring up the next slide. Cool. Here's our agenda. We're going to cover a little bit of foundational knowledge around types of industry billing models. Then we're going to cover the three methods of deploying your jobs and the pros and cons of each. We're going to be covering a XPM job import template, which I'll be providing to you if I can in the chat, if I can't after this webinar. And Will's going to show us how we bulk up. Once we deployed our jobs, what do we then do with it? How do we then allocate that to people so that they can actually get the work done? And then what does that look like from a day-to-day perspective for a year everyday individual? All right, getting into industry billing models. Should say we'll cover questions at the end, but feel free to use I think there's a Q&A section there, or actually a chat. Feel free to utilize that so we can
Yeah,
say.
I can hop on some questions while you're presenting, Rubes. So if you do have questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. If there's anything longer, we might have a bit of a wrap up at the end and talk about those bigger questions.
Great. This is just around methods of billing, and when we're deploying jobs, this is a consideration: is are we invoicing those jobs? And when it comes down to it, there are a lot of different ways of invoicing for our services in accounting, but they mainly fall into three main categories, and that's time and cost, your like hourly rate in arrears type invoicing. There's some sort of quoted method, whether it be invoicing on completion, or upfront, or some combination thereof, but there's a fixed fee of some sort. And then there's like a subscription or retainer or fixed monthly fee or annual service agreement, whatever language we want to use there. It's like a regular payment that, or regular invoice we would generate. Why does that matter? Well, they all have different pros and cons. And most practices in New Zealand in particular have a mixture of all of these things happening at once. So talking about the pros of time and cost, it's your more traditional method. It's easy to sell because it's, I guess, easy to understand. It's just time and rate. So cons, people prefer a fixed fee in this day and age. Talking about our clients, it's quite difficult to achieve write-ups or significant wins because the hourly, as long as the time you put into it is what ends up on the invoice. So there's no opportunity for a large write-up. Cool. With quoted methods, we tend to have happier clients because they know what they're going to pay you, whether they're invoicing it, paying it at the end or at the start or somewhere in between. You have the opportunity for higher margins on jobs because you're taking the risk on delivering things quicker than you plan or as quick as possibly possible. You need to have a good understanding of the complexity or the work involved and the people who are going to be doing that work in order to arrive at a fixed fee. There is the higher risk of write-off, so it is a double-edged sword, old fixed fees, but also the risk of reward. Lastly, the retainer or subscription method, much better for cash flow, both for you and for your customers. It's a lot easier to bundle in other services. They're paying a single fee, and you're disconnecting in their mind the time to the value. So it is very much a value-based philosophy for pricing. They're a little bit hard. Well, they're harder to manage with subscription models because you're going to have to manage these regular invoices, and you'll still bear the risk of actually delivering that work. So they're paying for it in advance a lot of the time, and you have to make sure you can do it. Cool. Now, within that, we have historically run a lot of specific webinars on this, but in case you haven't or not across, there are three methods within subscription-based invoicing that we don't talk about a great deal, but often we talk about fixed monthly fees or retainer-based invoicing. We just treat them all the same, but it's not the case. There are at least three different methods. There is in advance, in period, and contract period. And I think we have some handy slides Will's put together for us here. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I think they work.
Oh, I even got the animations. This is good. Cool. This is the in advance method. So if you have fixed monthly fees or some sort of retainer type arrangement in your some engagements in your practice that are invoiced this way, it's important that you know which of these methods you're using in your business because they are all quite different and they do impact our job setup and our job completion and a few things like that. So with in advance, you're invoicing in advance. So by the time you start the work, you've actually received all your invoicing. So if you look here, you've got your GSTs, say, those blue dots, they're happening throughout. But then the annual accounts gets done the following year. So that by the time you pick up the annual accounts, you have received all the money you will receive for delivering that work. It'll leave you a nice fat negative WIP balance. If you're familiar with a negative WIP balance, that is essentially your budget to finish that purple dot there. So that's in advance. It's often harder to sell because when someone first meets with you as a new client coming on board, that they may be used to paying in arrears with their previous accountant, so they've just paid for accountants probably, and you're asking them to start paying you kind of backdated to the financial year and then into the future as well. So it can be quite difficult to sell in that regard, but cash-wise, it's the best because you get paid way ahead or well ahead of when you do the meat of the work. Cool. The most popular method though is this method. Most of you are probably using this if you're aware of it or not. It's in period, and in that scenario, our purple dot moves. So we've got the same monthly invoicing, same in period activities, GSTs, quarterly coaching, whatever we're doing during the period. But that purple dot, that's for the previous year's annual accounts. So by the time we get to month 6 and we're delivering that work, we have only received 6 months worth of invoicing there. So you could potentially have a positive WIP balance at that point, and then it goes back to negative. So you're not getting the full amount. You're not going to have the full budget available at the time you go to pick up that annual accounts. You'll have partial of that, but you'll make it up by the end of that 12-month period. So yeah. Lastly, contract period. This is the worst of all methods, sometimes we call it like the birthday method or the contract period method. When you meet someone, what are we in today? March now. Yeah, when you meet someone in March, you're saying, great, on the 1st of March every year, you're going to start paying me monthly today. And on the 1st of March or the end of February every year, we're going to renew that engagement. And that starts off real well when you're like starting out as an accounting practice because you've not got that many clients. But when you get to 360 clients, you're going to have 30 renewals every month. And that's going to become administratively very challenging because effectively you're setting up 30 jobs every month. You're worrying about 30 repricing scenarios every month. It becomes very challenging. Yeah. And then when engagements change, it becomes harder still. So this contract period starts at a random date, ends at 12 months from that. It looks very similar to in period, but it's happening all the time for you. So if you are in this scenario, can be quite difficult to move off it functionally within Xero Practice Manager. So contact myself or Will, and we'll talk you through the easiest way of doing that. Cool, but it's like not a long-term option for most accounting practices. That people figure out eventually that this is just not a sustainable way of running our fixed monthly fees. Awesome. For all of those things, whether it's time and cost, a fixed fee in arrears or a deposit or something like that, some sort of retainer using those three methods we described, the golden rule of practice management is to always align your time and your invoicing. If you do that, you can't do much wrong from that. Yeah, the most common error that we see, I guess, everywhere. It's not a Xero specific thing. It doesn't matter what you use as a practice management tool. Is to have all your invoicing sitting in one place, whether it be on a job or something, and then all these other jobs with a whole bunch of time. And people wonder, well, why can't I get any good reporting? Why can't I see how my people are performing? Why can't I view a WIP balance that means anything to me? And it's because of that misalignment. So this is why we're talking about pricing here in a job creation workshop. It's very relevant to how we create our jobs. Cool. But if you keep this golden rule of practice management in mind, you can't go far wrong. All right. Now, three methods of deploying jobs within XPM. These are the three most popular methods, I should say. So we're mainly focusing on method number one today, which is the job import method. There are some pros and cons we'll get into next, but the other two methods are recurring jobs, which within Xero Practice Manager, which some of you will be familiar with and maybe even using. And there's the copy job method, which is also used sometimes and also has its own pros and cons. So we'll talk about some of those now. In the opposite sequence. Cool. Copy job. So copy job is a process by which when you finish the last activity or the last task on a job, whenever you might finish it throughout the year, it's someone's responsibility, much like doing a final invoice or doing a WIP wash up, to create the next year's job. And some benefits of that, well, the main benefits of that is that the estimated times that are on that job and the job budget copy across, which is pretty good. None of the other two methods achieve that. With the exception of job import, which we'll show you at the bottom at the end. But that's the big draw card for this. There's a bit of asterisk on that as well. It also copies your disbursements, which is a real hassle. So yeah, there's not all unicorns and rainbows there, but copy job method is a valid method, and that's the main benefit. The downside is that it relies on the people closing those jobs out. So you've got different people closing jobs at different times throughout the year, and you're relying on those people to copy that job. If they don't copy the job or forget to copy the job or close the job and do the wash up and do the final invoice, but don't create next year's job, it's pretty easy for things to slip through the cracks. It's one by one. There's no bulk copy option or function within Xero Practice Manager or elsewhere. And another one that we're going to be getting into toward the end of this workshop is that your planning process, if you think about, creating these jobs and then allocating them to people so that you can look into the future and say, do I need to hire more people? How many more clients can I bring on? These sorts of questions, you're having to do that each month. So a bit like that contract period problem we talked about, becomes quite onerous when you're you've got a whole new batch of jobs to go and allocate out every month based on the things you finished in that month. And you're thinking a year ahead at a time. So it can be quite onerous. It's certainly harder than doing all of your planning around March, April each year, where you have all your jobs created and then allocated out, and you can actually make a good decision around where and who you need to hire. Or how many more clients you can bring on with the team you have. Let's talk about recurring jobs. They're pretty popular and a bit like that contract period method. They work real well when you're just starting out, 1 to 5 sort of people. But then when you get somewhere in the vicinity of 500 to 1,000 recurring jobs, that they start becoming very hard to maintain. They can't be updated in bulk. They can't be created in bulk. Whenever you need to modify anything, it's actually very onerous. And you also you rely on someone in onboarding and offboarding of your clients to be very diligent around creating and removing those recurring jobs for them to work well. The benefit though is that they're set and forget, they do recur. Some of the downsides that we see here is that can't be bulk updated. They're quite slow and painful. I just said 600, but yeah, they don't work well. There's a maximum number. There's a kind of a size of a practice where recurring job stops really being a practical solution. And it shortens the planning horizon. It's very tempting, or people are very tempted when setting up recurring jobs to reduce the frequency of those jobs. And a common example is GSTs. They'll set up a recurring job that recurs every 2 months for GSTs. And on the surface, that sounds real practical, right? Real helpful. But when it comes to allocating work ahead to people, it means your planning horizon is very, very short. And so as a business, it's quite hard to look beyond the shortest frequency or the highest frequency recurring job that you have. So if you've got 100 GSTs that pop up every 2 months, there's 200 hours of work probably there that is unplannable beyond 2 months. And so if somebody leaves in your business, it becomes very challenging to take that work and reallocate it to others or to make decisions beyond 2 months ahead. And we all want to be thinking beyond 2 months ahead. So these are some of the problems with recurring jobs. If you are using recurring jobs, I would recommend you're doing all of them annually. Yep, that allows you to plan annually. So they're still recurring. And as you said, maybe you've got less than 600 clients and it's still manageable for you. Make sure that all of those engagements are in your recurring jobs and that they recur annually on or around March or April each year. That'll solve that planning horizon problem for you. And it means at least, well, once a year and for the entirety of the year, you have all of your work available to be allocated to somebody with a plan. Yeah. Awesome.
I'll just clarify there what Rubes means there is if you've got a GST job that rolls over every 2 months, the better
Yep.
approach is to have a single job that rolls over in the year and it has six GSTs on it.
Yep.
That's what he's talking to there.
Correct. Yep. Yes. Awesome. Now, job import. This is the method we're going to be doing together today. You do it once per year, and maybe once. Well, this might be the last year we do it. I don't know. We'll see what Will says at the end. But talking about this is really good because it gets your business into a rhythm. It means we reprice all of our engagements once a year. We deploy all our jobs once a year. We allocate our work once a year. We have a very clear picture for the entirety of the year of everything that we are required or obligated to deliver for our customers. So, yep, those are the main benefits. The cons is that it is a CSV import spreadsheet, and if it was easy, we wouldn't be on a webinar, and Will and I wouldn't be running workshops every year to show people how to do it. So it is. I wouldn't say it's the most intuitive method. It requires, I say, yeah, at least one switched on person once per year to do it well, and hopefully that's all the people that are on this call and watching this recording. Um, Cons. If you make a mistake while importing, it can be quite onerous to undo that mistake. And the most common method would be applying the incorrect template to the import. So we'll look at that at the time. Cool. Nothing you do can't be undone. It's just sometimes in XPM, undoing things can be not as fast as doing them. And job import is one of those things. Awesome. Now, the fourth method that often gets brought up is around ignition. This is a valid method of deploying jobs also, but some of the challenges people have with it is that when you're like little 1 to 5, maybe 1 to 10 size practice, it's real easy to have all your engagements in ignition because it's a pretty hard and fast rule. We go, yep, every engagement goes through ignition. That's basically what you want. But as you get a bit bigger, that stops being a reality, and we inevitably have engagements that aren't in ignition, whether they're somewhere else, basically. And you're going to need to use one of the other three methods of creating those jobs anyway. So people, as they get a bit bigger, they often can't rely only on ignition for job creation. One of the one of the big drawbacks for us anyway, and anyone who wants to start allocating work like now, March, for April, May, June, and beyond, is if you're using ignition right now, you're sitting here waiting, and you're in a workshop with Will and Ruben, you can't actually do anything because you can't deploy those jobs until the 1st of April. There's no like deployment date versus rollover date in ignition. There are no separate dates there. It's the first date of the engagement is the day the job gets pushed into your XPM. It's a bit of a problem. It means you're sitting there on the 1st of April or the first week of April, and none of your team know what they're working on, or really, because we haven't been able to allocate them anything. Cool. When you've got large entity groups, some of our customers do like smaller volume, higher value customers with multiple entities in large family groups. XPM struggles with the job creation for those, and that's often around the proposal creation process. Yep. Yeah, doesn't lean itself super well that way. If you've got more than one entity, and some practices in New Zealand that have multiple XPMs for a single kind of owner, I guess, or series of owners, ignition's pretty hard when it comes to that because you have to end up with 5 different versions of Ruben at linkhq.com, basically, just to log into ignition, the various ignitions I need to access. And oh man, the last one is probably the biggest one, is that when we use ignition, we need to be very mindful around that golden rule of where our invoices are going versus where our time is going. And it's super easy when using ignition for that to get disconnected, even though it's meant to make it easier. Works real well when it works, but as soon as it goes wrong, it goes quite wrong. So yeah, you want someone who's across like how are these invoices being pushed from ignition to your Xero Blue, and how is that then from going from Xero Blue to the relevant job in XPM, because it can only go to a single job, which is where our time needs to be. So it's a triangle between these three apps, and unless someone in your business understands that triangle, it can break a lot of things that come later. Awesome. All right, let's get into the actual meat. Ooh, cool. Let's go. This is the last little section. Let me share my screen. Cool, here we go, job input template. Now, I'll just see if I can put it in a chat. I'll see if I can drop in a doc, eh? Yeah. No. Lets me do everything except drop something from my computer. Okay, that's cool. I'll email this template at the end. Let me just bring this over here. Actually, I'll put that over here. Give me a second. Here we go. Cool. I'm going to email you a template that looks a bit like this. This is the one I use for all the people who contact me, and there's quite a few of them that I help on a semi-regular basis import their jobs. Um, the template you find in the Xero help support, I find it real hit and miss. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. It's slightly different to this, but it's got the same sort of columns. But this is the one I recommend using because I know that it works. Important elements of this template are that it's in a CSV and that these column headers are not edited. You can't go and invent new ones on the edge, and you can't modify these names at all. If you keep those two things in mind, you can't go far wrong. But this is what we're after. And here is a file I have imported previously. So you're going to want something that looks a bit like this. Cool. This is the empty one. Let me just bring up something that looks like this. What we want to do is, I'll just make that a bit bigger for you. We want a list of all of our clients and the services they use for us, one way or another. There are some ways you can achieve that. The easiest method would be to start with Xero Practice Manager. Yeah, I'm not familiar already. Under Business and Settings here, we can export a client list. Just in case you don't have one already, this is the easiest way to start with one. The other benefit of doing this via XPM, if you go to Export Generic Clients here, cool, it'll find you a file, click to download, 579 rows, looks a bit like this. Is that the client names must match. This is quite important. This is what a client export looks like from XPM. This is the list that you're after. All of your active clients in your XPM right now are in this list. So they all should have some service or another they'll be using of yours. There's a whole bunch of other client-based information. We're not going to modify that today. We cover that in other sessions. But you notice on the far right, there's this UUID, and that only got added about 18 to 24 months ago by Xero, around that single client record change that they've made. Unfortunately, this UUID is not used for the job import. It's the client name. So make sure that's the one you want to copy across. Cool. Don't ask me why, but we still use client name to match jobs to clients for a job import. So you're going to paste that in. I'll see if I can find an example here. Here we go. Looks a bit like that. Now, as you're pasting this in, you're going to need to identify what job template are these people using, or what kind of services are they using of ours. And if you come into your XPM, these are the lists to choose from under Business and Settings here. One of the things I'll just show you a bit of a preview, I guess, is that when we're importing these files that we're about to prepare, one of the difficult bits about it is that you have to have different file per service or job template, basically. So you're going to import a file here. It's going to have and be imported into a status. All the jobs that are in that spreadsheet are going to have a status, and it might be not started or something to that effect. They'll have a category and they'll have a template. These fields aren't in the spreadsheet. They're set at the time of import. So that's why we need 14, 15, 16 different spreadsheets sometimes for all of the different flavors of work that we do for people. If you're wondering where these templates come from, they are located in business settings, job settings, and job templates. Cool. And this is where that golden rule comes into it. When we're setting these up, these are the names of templates. They need to have all the tasks that are going to relate to the scope of the services for that customer. So this is what a typical template might look like for a customer who uses us for annual financial statements and bi-monthly GSTs. So yeah, this is an example of what a job template would look like. And we want this information here to be in that spreadsheet. So someone somewhere needs to know, what do we do for this person, and have it sit here. Cool. You can have clients appear. I'll actually cover that next. Sweet. So we want to populate what services do these people use? Here's one I've prepared earlier, actually. Cool. Right, that's it. So we'd have one big master sheet, and then I'd recommend creating separate tabs or different sheets. It actually doesn't matter. But you want to copy those headers across into those different sheets here. Bang, bang, bang. Not like that. Cool. If you can see my screen here, we've got a different tab name for the different templates we're going to use. So I've got a tab for annual financial statements, These are all the clients who utilize that service. I have a tab for quarterly BAS, which is an Australian version of a GST return. These are the clients that need quarterly BASs. I'd have a different tab for monthly GSTs, or a different tab for 6 monthly GSTs. Potentially different ones for odd and even, if you have that as well. These are people who use quarterly coaching services, etc., etc. Clients can exist in more than one tab, but only where we're still maintaining that golden rule. So if you invoice people in arrears, 100% of your engagements in arrears, you are more likely to be able to have multiple jobs because you're not breaking the golden rule of having your time and your invoicing disconnected. Cool. So I'd recommend populating one big sheet and then sorting it and breaking it up into as many little sheets as you're going to need. Cool. Once you've done that, we're going to populate the rest of the sheet. So I've already broken up my clients. We're going to give this a name. So here's my annual financial statements. You want to have like quite a handy some sort of consistent naming convention if you don't already, and it's helpful if it includes the financial year we're talking about, particularly where we have a mixture of those in period or in advance type engagements. It can be quite confusing for a team member picking up the work or allocating that work to someone, knowing, well, what financial statements are we talking about? Are we talking about last year's ones, or is that someone else doing that, or are we talking about the ones that are coming? So that that gets cleared up if we give it a good name. So it could be annual accounting services or annual financial statements, something like that, or annual accounting services, and put a year in it, like FY 27. I'll go with something like that. Cool. Or 2006/27, or whatever convention you want to use. But mainly we're communicating to our team there. As long as our team understand what we're doing here, you'll avoid a lot of confusion. So I've just copied that name down. That's going to be the job name for all of these jobs. Awesome. Start date, I'm going to put in the first date of the financial year. And I'm going to put in the due date, the 31st, 2027. These start and due dates aren't as important as they used to be. The main rules that are around them for importing is that they must be in DDMM year format, like I've shown you here. You'll fail, the import will fail if it is in any other format. So if you're not familiar, you want to highlight all of that, format them, make that date look a bit like that, or exactly like that. Cool. The other one is that your due date cannot be before your start date. So, but that occurs less frequently. Great. Now, one other field we'll fill in is this job number. This one's a little bit tricky, so bear with me. To get that number, we want to find out what the next number in our sequence is. We don't want to just start a brand new sequence, ideally. One of the benefits of job numbers is that they're sequential, so we know that they're unique, and we don't ever get conflicts around duplicates or anything like that. So if you come into business and settings, under practice settings, there's a really well hidden button that says edit number sequences. And it'll say what the next number is. You're going to take that and copy it. And remember the prefix J in this example. Cool. Come back to my sheet. That's my next number. I'm going to put the prefix in. And I copy that all the way down. Amazing. Now I'm going to repeat that process. I'll talk to manager and partner in a moment, but I'm going to repeat that process for all of these others as well. So I'm going to take my quarterly BAS, and I'm going to call that, or quarterly BAS FY27. So it's one job. It's going to have 4 tasks in it because it's quarterly probably. So I don't want that. My start date and end date, due date will probably be the same. But I just want to show you the job number copying across. There's a little gotcha in that as well. Looks a bit like that. Cool. So with this job number, we want to take the last job number here and +1. Because job numbers must be unique. So I'm going to make that a 9. Copy that down. And do the same process over here. Cool. Cool. And I might as well do the rest. Quarterly coaching. While I'm doing this, I think now's a good time to, if you have any questions, to fire them in the chat, and Will do his best to answer them as we go.
Yeah, I've been picking up as we go.
Awesome,
a lot of the questions are around managing deadlines, given that the jobs are all got the same due date. And I said that we'll be covering this in the next part of the webinar. I think the key thing here is that a lot of people use their jobs to manage the workflow, where we use tasks to manage workflow. And this is a bit of a change of thinking, which we'll have a look at once I get into my section. But yeah, if you don't want to manage your workflow via tasks and you want to stick with jobs, in which case you may be giving that a bit more thought around what your due date is. But yeah, as I say, when we get into my part of the webinar, I'll be showing you once these jobs are created, how do we actually go and allocate that work to our team, and how does our workflow fall out the back of that? So yeah,
Great question.
really good question.
Cool. So I'll just almost finish there now. Right. And a job number. I'll copy that across. Make sure we've got a. We'll see. I made the mistake there. See that one there? That one has to be +1. That was going to give me an error. Awesome. Sweet. +1. Cool. Now I take my last one. There's going to be all the. I should have all my jobs will now have a unique number, which is nice. I want to take this number and put it back in my XPM. But I want to go +1 there too and save. So now we've kind of like, if anyone happens elsewhere in my business to be creating jobs right now, I don't need to stop or disrupt them from doing that. It's just going to pick up at 82. And I've got my little block there penciled in basically for my imports. Cool. Excellent. Now, manager and partner, I actually don't typically populate those, but you're welcome to. There's a much faster way of pre-populating those. These are job manager, job manager, and job partner, the two records that sit on the job, not the client. But they can be imported as long as they look exactly like this, and as long as the name matches exactly. So don't go and copy and paste it out of XPM. If you have it, find someone's name on a job or in a staff settings or something, and copy it exactly as it appears, and you can't go far wrong there. If we do have time, we'll make a little note and we'll see if we can show them how that can be bulk updated as well, if we have time at the end, using the client record. Cool. Sweet. Okay, cool. Now, we've got our different sheets. We've got our different workbooks or different sheets here. We want to save these as. So I'm going to go Save As. Make sure I'm in the appropriate sheet. And I recommend saving them to your desktop. Give them a good name. Call it like the job template name, ideally. So annual financial statements, job import, something like that. Like to give a little 1.0 because I don't always get it right first time, but I try to. And importantly, we're going to save it as a CSV. And it's going to give me an error. It's going to go, hey, this workbook's got 4 sheets in it. You're only going to be able to save one of them. I'll go, yeah, don't worry about that. It's going to save the one you're in. Cool. So I've got one pop up now. I'm going to repeat that process for the next one. File save as. This one's my quarterly BAS. Job import. Put a year in it as well, because you're probably going to do this, hopefully not next year, but maybe. Cool. Quarterly coaching. Job import. Like that. CSV, yes. And lastly, 2 monthly GSTs, job import, something like that. Cool. Great. Now, if we were importing all of these or setting up recurring jobs for all of these, it would be hard work, right? This is made for much higher volumes, but fortunately, we just do it once. But you can see there's a lot of scope there for these sheets to be very large. They actually, there is a limit to the volume of jobs. It's not 500. When we're bulk updating client records in XPM by that sheet I briefly showed you, there is a limit there, a hard limit of 500 records at a time. Super annoying when you've got 6,000 clients. But yeah, that is within XPM. When we're importing jobs, there isn't I've never seen limit 500, limit 1,000. But yeah, I'd be hesitant to do more than 1,000 rows at a time, but I have had that succeed before. It does take a while to load. I'll just go aim low and start with a small one. So work my way from my smallest one backward is a good way to go. That's probably what I'm going to do here. Cool. Now, we've got our files, just so we can refresh where we are, starting from my dashboard here. I'm going to go to Business and Settings and go to Import, File Type, Generic Job, File Format, comma separated. Next. This is the most nervous bit. So state, I'm going to import them into some starting job state, not in or ready to start or to be scheduled or something like that. Category, select your category. if you have jobs, if you've suddenly realized that, oh, some of these are in arrears and some of them are fixed monthly fees, and we use the category to separate those, create just duplicate that and cut it in half or put who needs to go where, because as you can see, you're going to need two different files there. Great. And I'm going to start with what did we do last? My GSTs. I'll start with my littlest one. Cool, and we'll call that two monthly GSTs, something like that. Choose file, find my file, and then hold my breath. 18 rows imported. That's good. So that's a success. If you receive errors there, they come in about three different main flavors. One of them is that file, it'll say like file not supported, and that means we forgot to save as a CSV. The next most common one is job number already exists, and that is what it says. Basically, that job number already exists. It won't create a new one. You need to go and find that job in your template and give it a different number using that process we covered around updating that sequence in the edit number sequences area. And the third one is the date. That's probably the most common actually. Date not in supported format. So if it errors, it won't import. You will need to repeat this import. If you get a partial success and partial error, that's actually the worst scenario. You want to only find, it'll tell you all the rows. It'll say row number 431, error, reason. You need to go and find row number 431 in your import template and just eyeball it or contact Ruben maybe and say, hey, what's wrong with this? And I'll see what I can do to help. Another one I'll mention actually is duplicate client name. Obviously, when we try to import a job, job number must be unique, but XPM gets confused when there's an identical client name. That most often happens when there's two clients, and sometimes you won't even notice because it'll be sitting in your archive. Oh, here we go. It'll be sitting in your archive, so you're not even seeing it every day, but it is sitting there with the same name. Now, yeah, don't ask me why. Here we go. Let me just find out where I got to. Give me a second. Don't ask me why a job import lets you import into an archive client, but it does. So keep that in mind.
Well, you fixed it up, Rube. So I had a really good question from Louise there, which was with our job structure, do we recommend having our jobs put in? So do we want to have all the tasks in a single job? And then I said that what we want to do is think about our job as the engagement. So if we bill for just annual accounts, we want to have our annual accounts in that job. If we do annual accounts and GST, it's all billed under one engagement, like a monthly service plan or a fixed price agreement.
Yep.
In that situation, we want the annual accounts and the GST tasks in the same job because that's how we're billing it. So as long as the billing and the time are in the same place, we're going to be fine.
Yep.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Cool. Back over to you.
Yeah. Awesome, man. If you can see my screen here, this is if you do receive it'll be in green. It'll say duplicate client found. You need to find that duplicate client name, and this is from the archive here. And there's no any better way around it that I'm aware of, but this is what I do. I come in here and I go to restore, edit. Where's our edit? Add client. I need to find my able Tasmans again. Oh, no, they're going to be out of my archive now. Here we go. Cool. Click into them, and I go to, I need to restore them again. Let me try that. Did that work? Random. Doesn't seem to be restoring them. Anyway, I restore it. Oh, here we go. No, that works. Just took its time. Cool. Edit. And I type like bracket archive in here. The client name must be different. Now, there might be a better way than that these days. I know there are ways you can merge now. I have some hit and miss success with that, but I find this the easiest way around it. If you do happen to see that error type. Cool. Great. Now I'm going to just repeat that process. Let me pin that. Hold my breath 3 more times. And we should be good to go. So I'll do this in quick time. And if there are any other questions, now's a good time to ask them. Cool. So I'll do one for annual accounts and 2 monthly GSTs. What do I have? This is the bigger one, so it's the more nervous one. Cool, you see my little browser whirring away there. 87 rows, not bad. Cool, what else did I have here? I'm going to have quarterly coaching. Very good. Cool. 6 rows. And then lastly, quarterly bears. Done. How good. All right, that's the end of that's how our jobs get created. You'll find them all in your XPM. And I'll hand over to Will now, I guess, to show us what happens. Oh, actually, let me just check my slides. I think I had one more thing. No, I didn't. No. I'll hand over to you, Will.
Right, and I've got a question from Tim that you can look after because I don't know the answer.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yes.
So what I'm going to be doing is showing you what happens after we've imported those jobs. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm showing you in Link now. So I'm also aware that not everyone on this webinar will use Link for their workflow, and but there's also a lot of people that do. So I'll be sort of speaking to both situations. Now, as we mentioned, Link runs its workflow by task, which I'll be taking you through here now. And if you aren't using Link and you want to run your workflow by job, you'd have your due dates representing when you want to do that work. But yeah, I'll show you how Link works. So this is how we allocate our works. We create our jobs. Now those will be sitting in XPM. Now what we can do is once we're in allocate work here, those jobs we've just created, they don't immediately arrive in Link. The reason for that is because we don't have a webhook into XPM. We need to call that data. So either shop overnight when we do an overnight sync, or you can come into HQ, go into integration, and then we can go fetch new data down here. And what that does is it grabs all the new jobs that we've just created in XPM. Now, if I come back here into allocate work, this is where we're going to allocate our work. And the idea is these are all the tasks that are to be allocated. That means they haven't been given to a person yet, and they haven't been given a due date. So what we want to do is allocate our work to our team members, and that creates our workflow. So I'll quickly hop in and show you workflow. So once I've allocated my work, they come into workflow, and this is my workflow list right now for the month. So you can see here for March, there we go, March 2026. I've got 98 hours of available capacity. So our workflow has capacity baked into it. So every interaction that you have with workflow, it's going to keep capacity live for you. So this is my year ahead, and we can see these are the tasks I've currently got allocated to me. So the ones I've completed, I've put to the bottom, and then I can, for example, drag this to the top of my list. If I want to start working on it, just like that, flag it to in progress. I can do my timesheets through here, for example. Log the timesheet, 13 hours was the last time I did a timesheet. I'll update that to 1 hour, hit enter. So that's how we run our workflow. But let's focus on once the jobs are created. So now that these have synced through, so we go to allocate work. We've got a new feature. So right now, I'll let you know I am in our test environment. The reason for that is we have a feature that we're going to be deploying Monday next week, which is called auto suggest, because once you create all your jobs, it's a big job to then go and allocate all that work, right? We've just built this feature called auto suggest. So what I can do is I can select a list of our jobs, just like this. Actually, got some new ones here that have come through. Let's grab some of these new ones. So let's go like this. Grab those jobs there. Oh, hang on. I'll just grab a big chunk. Here we go. Select, and then we've got suggest allocations pops up. So when we select, use our select button, or suggest allocations comes up. When we hit suggest allocations, it opens up the drawer, and what it's doing is it's looking at the people that worked on those tasks in the previous year. So it's gone and looked up Action Bronson Enterprises. It's found annual accounts review, and it's found both Josh and I worked on it. And it knows the date that it was worked on. And then from there, we can select the estimated time. So if you spend time going through and allocating the people the correct amount of, or allocating them the hours in each task, we can pull that through as estimated, or we can toggle it to do actual time. If I choose that, it allocates them based on actual time. So you can jump between them. I can also jump in here and go, right, well, I've given, let's say the previous allocated time was 2 hours, but I actually want to use the actual time for this one here. I can update that to actual. So it becomes really, really fast to go and allocate that work. So we're taking all of the data from the previous year and we're pulling it straight through. And all we need to do is just go publish to Xero like that. And that updates workflow. So that puts those tasks on the appropriate people's workflow lists and updates XPM with that allocation information. So what you should be able to do is you can just go and bulk select a list like this. So I've just grabbed a huge chunk of clients, suggest allocations, and it brings up my whole list. And I can just run through and go, cool, that review, I've put there's 32 hours on that one, probably a bit much. So I'm going to override this one to adjust it. Let's just give it 4 hours. Again, keep in mind I'm looking at demo data here. And you can just run through and make sure let's say this one here, that's pulled through the actual. I'm going to use the actual for that one. So go through and configure everything, publish to Xero. Boom, all that work's been allocated. So what we're doing is we're taking the work that was done last year and we're applying it to this year's work. So in theory, we should be able to allocate 80 to 90% of your work every year just by clicking that button there and making a few adjustments. So once I've allocated that work, it goes to my team members. So this is my workflow list. And then I can also, we've got a nice search in here. So I think 10,000 feet was something I just got allocated for July. Click into here and these are the tasks that have been allocated. So really, really easy to find what we're looking for. So that's my workflow, but I can also view my team's workflow. So I go to entire practice. This is how I'd run a team meeting. I can run through and look at what Cam's got allocated. I can see Josh's work. I can run through each team member. And you can see this is what Ruben's got on like this. And Ruben's not updating his statuses, obviously. Yeah, so that is, so talking through the whole process, you import your jobs into XPM that creates the jobs for the year ahead. Then you can hop into Link and go to allocate work. You can just bulk select your list, probably stick to maybe 1,000 to 2,000 at a time. Probably you don't want to do 10,000 at a time. There'll be a bit of page load there, but if you just batch them into maybe 1,000 tasks at a time, auto suggest those. Once you've done them, 90% of your allocation will be done for the year ahead. So you can go through and allocate the work that hasn't yet been allocated. Then you've got your whole year allocated out. And the benefit of using Link to do your allocation and do your workflow is you'll also have capacity charts where you can view how much capacity your firm has for the year ahead. So this is my capacity. We can also look at the practice level capacity. Look in here, so he was over allocated. So it's really nice. But yeah, that feature, allocate work for our customers. So I know I've got a bunch of customers on the call. That'll be available first thing next week. So you'll be able to go in, bulk select all your tasks, auto suggest, and that work's been allocated to the appropriate people.
Amazing.
Yeah, nice and easy. Yeah.
Yep.
So you might be able to allocate your entire year's work in like a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's really innovative and the first time that's ever been possible within the accounting industry from any platform anywhere. So yeah, people who use Xero benefit from that. Great. I did have a question before we get to, could you go to the job screen and just show how to bulk update job manager and job partner, just because I didn't do it as part of the import.
Sure.
For people that are using this, it's just kind of one of those nice to haves that we have in here. I did also had a question about budgets. Can I import job budgets? Man, I wish. If you could import job budgets via the method I just showed you, I wouldn't have had to build a job screen to do that here. So yes, that's something that can only be done via Link. Is that a dollar budget on a job being loaded in bulk?
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to probably mention what our plans are with the Link product. We are working to build a standalone product. So we're building end-to-end practice management. So we've got workflow, we've got timesheets, we've got allocation of work, automated allocation of work as of Monday next week. We've got job screen capacity, and you all probably know that we do reporting as well. So we're doing a lot of stuff. The next thing on our list is to do job creation. So we're going to do proposals through to job creation with job rollovers, which will create the jobs in XPM. At that point, there's a few things we need to do on workflow, such as notes on tasks, internal comms, notifications. And then probably we're aiming by the end of this year, we should be we will have a standalone product that will work without XPM, but we'll also have the opportunity to keep the integration live, which means timesheets are being sent back and forth to XPM. So you don't need to detach from XPM, but I know there is a bit of an appetite out there at the moment for people to move away from XPM. And by the end of this year, we are pretty confident we're going to have a standalone product that you could use for that.
Calendar year or financial year, Will?
I'm gonna say calendar year.
All right.
We should be able to get some beta people in beta by the end of this year. So there's actually, because we've done so much back end work, it's about standing up front end now. Yeah, so we should be looking pretty good.
That's good. So that means that this might be the last year that we ever have to touch a CSV, or I ever have to touch a CSV import. I think I've done these CSV imports for the last 13 years of my life. So yeah,
so you'll be able to pull it into Link, and then from there you'll be able to run all your jobs. So all your job deployment could go from Link straight into XPM. So it would create a really nice interface for you to interact with, which won't require you'd have to do CSVs anymore. Yeah, we'll just use the API for creating jobs. So appreciate that most people in Australia and New Zealand will want to keep the integration with XPM on, which is great. Keeps you tied into the partner hub and all that. We're just building a standalone product just to sort of put a stake in the ground and say, look, we are a standalone product as well. So yeah, and also if we do want to look at the States as a market as well, there's no one using really XPM in the States. So that's the other sort of driver for that. Now, jobs. What we've got here is just using the API, we can update jobs in bulk. So these are all my job budgets here. So all the jobs that have just been created, they're probably going to have no budget. So if I go from active jobs to jobs without budgets, now I have a list of all my jobs without budgets. So I can come in here and put in like $2,000, make this one 5,000, 6,000, 2,000, and then we can publish that to Xero.
You could search all my GSTs, give them a fixed budget, or all my annual accounts of a certain size, or yeah.
That's right. So all these new jobs that we've just created, I think it's got FY-27. So all of these won't have budgets. So we can, bulk select all of these ones and say these are all got, you get the idea. Give it a $5,000 budget like that. Publish that to Xero. If we want to update our job managers, well, we can do that. So we can bulk, let's say jobs without managers. These are all my jobs. So jobs should always have managers. So I can come down this list here. Actually, we've got other fields in here. We can go.
You do. Cool. Yep.
So you can go client job manager. So we can bring these through, right? So I'm going to sort this list from A to Z. These are all the Reuben's ones, right? So let's bulk select Reuben like that, and then put Reuben in as the job manager like that. Publish that.
Cool. And that's how we take that client record. If you like client job managing, client partner, and push it into the job record, and that's why I don't tend to bother importing it anymore. Because I do this instead.
Yeah. So you can, as you can see, it's really, really fast to search and sort. And then we go, so that was the job manager. If we go job partner, bring that. Oh, you got job partner. You got client job partner. Client account manager. So let's just say I want to sort this by Will McTavish, sort descending. There we go. So I can now select the whole list like that.
Will was the partner on the client, therefore let's bulk update the partner on the job to be him. Yeah.
Let's put me in here, just like that. Boom, and publish to Xero, and that just goes through the API. So this screen here for bulk updating anything on jobs, really, really fast. As you see, it's got like that search, it's got filters, sorts, everything you could want, really. Cool. But yeah.
Fantastic.
Did it cover, Reubs?
Yeah, there was one other question, the tricky one that Tim asked. I have a client with two different names, but the same IRD number. That's fine. It's the client name in XPM that the job matches to. So as long as there is one client with that name in your XPM, you won't have a job import problem. Worst case scenario, you may just have to create that job individually if you just happen to have, for a valid reason perhaps, two clients with the identical names.
Yeah, just to reiterate, if you're so going ahead to the next financial year, if you are going to be using XPM to manage your workflow, you'd be using your jobs, in which case you may want to put some consideration into those job due dates. And we'd love to have a chat to you if you're interested in using Link. It's quick to set up. So you can have a chat to Cam, who's our sales guy. He can give you a bit of a demo of the product, and if you're keen to hop on board, Reuben helps with the whole onboarding process, so it's pretty seamless to move over to this, and we can just make sure that you go live on the next financial year. And if you've got data in XPM, that's all going to pull through. So to do allocations, that's not looking at the tasks that were allocated. It's just looking at the person that did the work on the task. So all we need is tasks and timesheets, and your whole year can be allocated, and you have a capacity plan and workflows.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks. I think that's the end of our slides and just allocations. Actually, capacity. Yeah. We do have no, that was it, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thanks, team.
Yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't be shy if any of that was like a bit much. I can jump on a 15-minute call and I can take a look at your file or review your file if you prefer to do that, or do it together if you'd like to do that. I do that for people also.
Yeah, and if you'd like to have a chat to Cam, get a bit of a one-on-one demo, and you can ask specific questions about Link's workflow and the allocation of work, just reach out to one of us and we can put you in touch with Cam.